and welcome to our first edition of Blues Doc of the new year. And John, Dave and myself are going to look back over Leinster's victory against Connacht and against Munster, all the other Pro 12 action, and look forward to our game against the Ospreys. So boys, I suppose we'll start off with our game against Munster. Nice win down there. John, you were down at it?
I was. It was great. I think we were the only Leinster fans on the particular area of the terrace we were in. Certainly the only ones that were wearing blue and shouting really loud. But it was it was great. Great to get the win. Never in doubt. We stuck it to them early with Gary Ringrose's spectacular try that we could all be watching on a loop ever since, and quite happy a bit.
Actually, why don't we have a quick look at that one?
That was a quick lead in there.
The mistake people are making is it's not Gary Ringrose's try.
Well, Gary Ringrose's break.
Yeah, Gary Ringrose's creative try. Great play there from Jamie Heaslip, actually. Jamie and Dominic Ryan do some serious damage here.
Indeed.
What actually makes this, the two things that make this try are actually
Sean O'Brien.
Sean O'Brien's pass, the timing of his pass, and then just Ringrose just electric. But just the way he times his pass is perfect.
But look what Ringrose does with the ball in the two hands.
Oh, yeah.
He turns your man inside out, literally inside out, and then it's a simple little pop off to Isa, which that looked so easy when he did it.
But that reminds me of Leinster back 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when O'Brien was running with the ball at pace instead of taking it standing still, giving it to a number 13, a different number 13 obviously, who would make a little break like that and set up Naziwe in under the sticks.
Yeah. It's that particular passage of play is starting to look pretty Gervin Dempsey-ish, isn't it?
It is.
It's look, great steal, of course. He made loads of steals actually.
Yeah.
I think the back row played really well in both, especially in that game.
But it's simple hands. I mean, nobody kills the overlap by throwing skips or doing anything silly. If you notice here, the guy on his left, guy on his right, and the guy behind him. He has plenty of options.
He's got that.
And he didn't panic.
Yeah.
That little triangle there. I could just keep watching that. Can we actually forget the show? Can we just keep watching? It was just so unfussed, and so, Isa is always going to be there. I know he's lost a yard of pace, but the brain still as quick as ever. If, in fairness, if any of us could have been launched out of a cannon into that position, we probably could have fallen over the line.
Acme jets on our heels.
Yeah,
it's like Franz Beckenbauer used to say towards the end of his career. He says, "I'm no longer the fastest from A to B. Of course, now I don't start from A."
Yeah, that's it.
Or like Butch Wilkins, just call him the crab, Anyway, so we got another couple of tries. McGrath got one as well, Dave.
Yeah. Oh, there was just a lot of really good stuff in this game for us, for Leinster. Funny enough, we're watching the tries. The thing that was most impressive, and it's something that I want to return to actually when we're talking about both games as a whole, is Leinster's defensive system.
Really coming into its own.
Or not so much a system, actually. It's a strategy that encompasses a number of systems. There's a lovely kick from Madigan.
Yeah.
But again, you see here in Isa, doesn't lose his head, doesn't try and do too much with the ball. He sets it back, sets up the ruck, and we can move on from there, kind of thing. It's just a really good play from him.
Munster had a good go at stealing it there, but that was close. Not often Tom Denton gets near scoring a try.
I don't think he's got close to scoring one since Zebre a couple of years ago, was it? Zebre?
Better memory than me, Dave.
Jack McGrath doing his Gary Ella thing of touching the ball twice.
And there we go.
Glenn Ella rather than Gary Ella, sorry.
We can all see that that's a try. And you're standing right in front of it. Come on. I felt that Wilkinson he's scared to death of making his decision, isn't he? Over anything, What kind of crisps are we having after the game? I don't know. Could be cheese and onion.
There's a lot of refs like that, though, isn't it? They're just afraid to make
the TMO is both a blessing and a curse in terms of it's a blessing because it gives you a second chance to make, but it's also a curse because it's too much of a safety blanket for them. One thing is funny. Sky mic'd up Saili, and they made a big thing of the player mic. The one time they didn't go to the player mic was after he spun that pass into Zane Kirshner's hands. I would have loved to hear what he said there. But
probably ended in CK.
Yeah, fiddlesticks. This is actually coming up now. This is the incident we're talking about. Well, one of the good things actually was I was saying to Jason earlier. that Maloney was excellent when he came on. He did make shit of a number of their lineouts.
Yeah, he's a great line-out spoiler, and there we go, into place, runs into position, and nobody was going to catch him. And nobody could really be arsed by the look of it either. But it's good to see him get a bit of a try, you know, get his mojo back. He's much maligned. Everybody gives out about him. I give out about him myself. He's got another year with us. Actually, he's playing with us next season as well.
But why do people come out about it? Is it because they expected him to be the new Nasiwa or as good
Possibly.
as Brian O'Driscoll?
I think they expect him
I
to
don't
be
think he's done too much
Nasiwa's
wrong.
replacement.
He hasn't been spectacular in many of the things he's done.
No.
But
We were waiting for him to catch fire in his first season, and he did in spectacular fashion in the Pro 12 final when he scored. I think he scored a hat trick.
Scored 2 and set up a third.
Is that what it was? But he's kind of blown hot and cold. We're always going to have that problem though with teams trying to blend teams together when they're constantly changing. You know.
like myself and Dave were talking about it off camera, and one thing that we were kind of in agreement over was he kind of fits perfectly into what a Leinster player that's a foreigner, maybe what the IRFU want him to be. He's a top class Springbok player with 20 or 30 international caps.
Yeah, who's not going to challenge Carney for
And
his.
he's quite happy to, well, I wouldn't say he's happy to sit on the bench, but he is sitting
He's
on
accepting
the bench.
his
He's
position on
accepting
the
it.
bench.
And, you know, because a lot of players will say, well, actually, I'm not prepared for that, and I want out of my contract, and I want to move to a club
Where I can
where
start.
I can start, and someone isn't going to tell me that I have to play second fiddle to the incumbent Irish player, even though I feel I'm better than him. You know?
Ian Madigan.
For example. Lovely to see Ian Madigan getting a big cheer when he came on as well. You know, after he announces his leaving. It's kind of, we still love you, Ian, even though you're leaving us. Please come back soon now.
Toman, did he? Or the RDS?
The RDS.
Get in though.
I don't think he'd get it down there.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the match against Connacht, our 6th win on the trot.
Well, let's move on to the try anyway.
Yeah, we watch the try and then we can discuss the rain. Because, I mean, it's the only thing there is really to discuss about the match is the rain. The conditions made shit of the game.
We made shit of a lot of games this weekend.
The team that was going to win this game was the team that coped best with the conditions, and that was Leinster. Just had too much guile for Connacht in terms of how to play the game. Connacht were very brave in terms of, you know, keeping to the style of play they've had that's got them this far, in fairness. But sometimes you have to temper that ambition with pragmatism.
Yeah.
And I'm not entirely sure that Connacht did, because they still kept trying to play an expansive game. Whereas you look at Leinster, how Leinster played, it was 1 out, inside ball, 1 out, inside ball, slow, up the pitch, get the penalty, kick the penalty, and then start again.
Looking at that try, right, okay, Clancy falls in his arse just as it's been scored. But I think the reason he asked the question he asked is because he could see the ball grounded when he got up. If you look at it here, he peers into the ruck and he can see the ball being grounded. So what he's asking the TMO is did anything happen while I was on my arse to stop me awarding this try, rather than...
Or maybe from his position of so much closer to the ground than everyone else, he actually has an angle that the cameras didn't have, and he saw the ball being grounded.
Well, I think he
I'm
did.
just trying to find some reason why.
No, I think he did.
Like when we were in the ground, we were looking at that. We're going, "There's no way he can give that." You know.
It seems
Yeah, but it's
strange,
the question that
doesn't
was
it?
Yeah,
asked.
that's it. Yeah,
You
it's
don't
the
have to
question
see
that
it
was
grounded.
asked, yeah. Well, we weren't aware, obviously, of the question that was going to ask.
Yeah.
Well, the answer would be no, you can't award it, George, because you can't fucking see him.
No, that's not a... When you ask that question...
Is there
not
any
how-
reason why you can't award a try?
Yeah, but it's assumed. The question is that the guideline is that if the referee asks that question, it's because he's satisfied that the
That the ball is
technicalities of
grounded.
the try being scored have been completed.
And is there anything that
Yeah.
that happened before then that will
The
disallow
touch
try?
judge isn't going to look at the grounding in that.
For
time,
example-
unless there's a knock on in the grounding.
A pushover try from a scrum or a maul where the ball is in, never going to see daylight. If it looks like the thing has been grounded, he can ask that question, and then the TMO doesn't have to see the grounding. He just has to look to see is there any other reason why you can't award it. Like say if he knocks on the ball, loses control of it just before you see him with it grounded, that's a reason to disallow the try. Otherwise, anyway. We probably should have had a yellow card or two, maybe, or they did give a lot of penalties. Borderline.
Both teams were
in the first half.
Both teams were a bit narky with one another
They
in
were.
terms of stuff going on off the ball. We've seen Fergus McFadden's been cited.
Yeah.
It
looks terrible in the bit that.
Yeah, I don't think it's malicious, but I do think it's reckless. I mean, he's not careful where he puts his feet. That's all.
Well, there has been a suggestion that there was something done to him before the.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
I watched it a couple of times.
You can't see it. You can't see it.
You can't see anything been done to him. All you can see is a guy being reckless where he puts his feet, and that's what he'll get done for.
That's
I
it.
didn't think they were allowed to cite Interpros.
Yeah, no, it was back in the good old days. There was a gentleman's agreement. Rugby's not a sport for gentlemen anymore, Jason.
Clearly not.
So make sure that he's available for the Six Nations if we have a winger crisis.
Yeah.
But O'Brien came on with 30 minutes to go.
Both Sean O'Briens came on.
Yeah,
At the same time.
Yeah. But he kind of came on and shored up the game, I thought. And once again, it's great to see him coming back because he's been injured substantial amount of the last couple of years. And, he's just signed a new deal.
3-year deal.
With the IRFU, and obviously Six Nations only around the corner. It's good to see him. Great to see him back.
Well, he was exceptional against Munster.
Yeah,
from the get go.
He was.
He was.
I think he got man of the match.
He did get man of the match. He was head and shoulders the best player on the pitch. In fairness, there were a lot of good performances on both teams in that match, but he was head and shoulders better. And what he did was when Leinster were beginning to get a bit of Connacht were beginning to get a bit of a skitter on the Leinster scrum. And he came on, and as you say, he shored that up. Bit of experience.
He moved into number 8, didn't
He was
Yeah, he
8,
moved
he
into number
replaced
8.
Jordy
It was
Murphy.
kind of
Yeah.
quick. He got the ball out of the. They were under pressure in the scrum, and he was able to clean up a lot of the messy ball.
But it's funny when you contrast this with the Ulster game. I sat down to watch the Ulster game.
Leinster Ulster and Munster.
No, sorry, Munster Ulster on the day after our game, and I was watching it about an hour behind, and somebody texted me about 23 minutes in saying, poor old Ulster, that was an awful pity." But anyway, I thought Ulster, especially even going in at half time, I thought maybe they didn't do quite enough. But they looked like they were in control. Now, right up until the end, they looked like they could have won it, and they kind of shot themselves in the foot. And all Munster had to do was hang in, and
I thought that was
be
classic.
aggressive.
I thought that was
It was classic Munster, right?
Away from
It was,
home,
totally.
rope a dope.
Totally.
Taking on the arms, go up the pitch and get a drop goal. I thought it was classical.
I
Munster.
agree, but what with our game, when we're playing against a huge wind in the second half, like we got 3 points with the wind, and we had this massive against the wind second half to come. I felt we were in control of that game in the first half, but we only got 3 points, and I thought this is not going to end well. I had the same feeling about it that I had about Ulster. I thought Ulster were going to be in control, whereas I thought what actually happened to Ulster was what I thought was going to happen to us.
But the weird thing was, in the second half of that match, we dominated possession and territory, same as we did in the first half.
They did get a bit more in our 22. Yeah. They hardly saw it in the first half.
We still, we actually increased. I'm looking at the match stats here. It was 52-65 first half, second half to Leinster. So we obviously, in terms of how much possession we had in each half, so we increased our possession. Now maybe we didn't do it territorially, but I thought Leinster played that game. That was a game of where Leinster's experience told, where
absolutely
Owen Redden's experience told.
Yeah.
He moved Leinster around the pitch the way he does when he's on top form. He played well actually.
And he's played almost. He played 80 and 75, so he's put in a serious shift over, and he's got over his wobble.
Yeah,
he's had 2 good games and he got over his bad form that he was having.
But the thing that won both games for us ultimately was defence.
Absolutely.
One try conceded. And some would question that, or some have questioned. I don't, but as it happens, and it's not. People say, it's Kurt McQuilkin's defensive system. It's actually, if you watch Leinster play, it's not a defensive system. There's
defensive
2 or 3 defensive systems that Leinster utilise. It's in the course of a match. It's a defensive strategy that they have rather than a system. It's a strategy made up of a number of systems. A couple of times you'll see Leinster and they play just a hard, flat, straight line. Classical defence thing. You'll see them drift. And you'll also see them
shoot.
And you also see them shoot. And when you consider that traditionally the outside centre is the defensive captain.
shooter, yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's still the case, but traditionally. You consider who our outside centres have been in their last couple of games. A guy from rugby league and a child. that shows
Yeah.
that there's
But you see,
a
they've
buy-in in the team, that
They've
they're
had
all...
6 months of playing, of getting used to it. You know, like
He's a tough, gnarly, wiry old child now, I have to say.
Oh yeah, but you know that's the point I'm making, is that, you know, our defence has been led by guys who wouldn't be the traditional, who you think, like, since any of us have been watching Leinster, it's been Brian O'Driscoll leading the defensive line, and now he's gone, and suddenly there was this big hole, but McQuilkin has designed a system or a strategy that is implementable by no matter who's there.
Yeah.
yeah, well, they're buying into it anyway because it's
That's,
working.
that's the best, you know. But I also think we're getting over our like you were saying it before we came on about how they were all peaking for the World Cup and how it backfired on Leinster, and you know when they were supposed to be kicking hard, these guys were just in the dumps, and you know it wasn't. It took a while. And Redden, who hardly even played, you can see how the malaise has affected, and also the peak of fitness thing, where you have to. You said it, chasing peaks and troughs. You can't run on a plateau. It's you got to go up and down, and you've got to just pick who you peak for and who you trough for.
Yeah, well, we've come back into the league now. We're up to second.
Yeah, and looking good.
Well, some of the results have gone our
absolutely,
way.
that's what I mean.
Scarlets
Yeah.
lost both their matches, so
Yeah.
that pegged them back a little bit.
And although they weren't a team that was chasing us, they were a team that we would have worried about. It was Glasgow. Lost both their games
Yeah.
as well.
They got the lash.
Both away and home away.
Big crowds over at those matches. There was 23,000 in Murrayfield, and
And they weren't allowed to sell tickets the following week.
Yeah.
really,
There was you were away.
I was
The
away, yeah.
match was moved from Scottstown. The second game was moved
Right.
from Scottstown back to Murrayfield.
Yeah.
But it was capped at 8,000 because it was Glasgow's home game. That's why I was making the joke about home and home away. Both games were actually played in
Right,
Murrayfield,
okay.
which was
Yeah.
kind of odd.
I saw the second one. I didn't see the first one.
Edinburgh,
Not a classic.
no, it was not.
but it's good for. Well, it's good for rugby, but it's good for the league, and it's good for Scottish rugby because they have been in the doldrums.
Well, that's the
For a long
second
time.
year in a row that Edinburgh have won the
The
1872 Cup.
Yeah, 1812.
Something about our two games that really impressed me as well was the way we utilised our players. Like we rested Luke Fitzgerald this week. We rested. We didn't rest Ian Madigan because he had to come on, but we kind of rested him, and we rested Sexton the previous week. We rested Nasewa the previous week, and the same in the pack. The back row was rotated all over the shop. In fact, Josh van der Fleer came on the previous week, and he started this week. The rest were all different, you know. The only person that didn't really get a rest was Devon Toner. And that's possibly because we need him, Jack McGrath maybe a little bit as well. We need them with Healy out and with just a lack of numbers in the second row. With Triggs out, and you know we're looking a bit.
And Maloney's callow.
Maloney is callow. He looks
Talented though.
very talented.
I was saying to you that he's the guy who impressed me. I mean, obviously Van der Fleer and Ringrose are super talents.
Yeah.
But Maloney is the guy who's kind of snuck under the radar in terms of contribution.
Yeah.
I mean, that line out win, again, the one that he slapped down for Nasewa to pick up on the 5 metre line in Thomond Park, that was vital. That was an absolutely vital win.
Absolutely, yeah. And as a back, well, firstly, as a second row, you do the unseen work a lot more, and two, as a back, you're much more visible doing your work.
Yeah, possibly.
But also, you don't need to be quite so tough and gnarly. That's why second rows are mature later into their position, because it just takes a while to grow into a 6'6" frame for a start, and it also the pure grunt you need for that position takes a while to develop. So it's a lot easier to walk into be a centre at 20 than it is to be a second row at 20.
I think Devon Toner has only now reached
grown
his
into
physical.
it. Yeah, it's because he's that bit taller.
His physical, its physical kind of apex, if you like. Because remember, he always looked like a footballer, but he never looked like a rugby player, kind of thing. Now he looks like both.
But like the top, say the front 5 players are the ones that seems to, somehow or other, like it's the most physical position, but they seem somehow or other to be able to extend their careers into their mid to late 30s more so than other positions. Maybe
that's because we're cleverer.
I think it's because, seriously now, I think it's because when they're getting hit closer.
Yeah,
Rather
there
than-
isn't the velocity behind
Like
it.
if you've got
Of course.
two centres running at each other at
Yeah.
30 kilometres an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I think also just to go back to that, probably the rotation that one sees in front rows,
Yeah.
which is accepted as part of rugby, helps
Yeah.
prolong careers. Anyway.
yeah, for sure. So looking forward to the weekend's matches that are coming. There seems to be a bit disjointed weekend because
Of
of
course.
the
Euro.
Terrorism.
Yeah.
But Connacht travel to the Scarlets.
Mm-hmm.
They need to do us a favour there. But
Themselves a favour first and
yeah,
foremost.
well, like they've lost 4 games straight now since they
Yeah.
won that match against Munster. They've lost 3 Pro 12 and 1
Mm-hmm.
Hamlin Cup.
Yeah, I think that it's a tough game that because Scarlets are the kind of team, if you're not really on it, they can pick you
Oh,
off.
yeah.
They have a
Especially
lot of
this
talented
season.
players.
They're in trouble though, injury wise.
They
I know
are,
Connacht
yeah.
are too,
Yeah.
but they've basically run out of second rows. I think Jason might get his game over there if he toddled over. They're in serious trouble. So hopefully it's going to be a hard game away for Connacht. Like it really is. Hopefully they have a few more players back. McCartney and Heenan, 2 great. Heenan or McCartney didn't look that fit now. In fairness, I didn't think.
Heenan's a huge player for them, though.
They're both great players.
There's one area where Scarlets are strong in terms of both the players they have and the depth is in the back row. So they're going to need
all of
they're
that.
going to need all that they can
Men
master.
on board.
Yeah. It's a tricky one. I mean, for all the Irish provinces kind of on their way to getting to a better place than they were before, winning in Wales was the stepping stone.
Yeah.
You had to start winning in Wales. I suppose it's like if you're playing in European competition, you have to start winning in France. In the Pro 12, kind of Wales is the Pro 12's France in a way.
It certainly
you have to
was.
start winning over there.
It certainly was. I mean, we got whitewashed two years in a row in 05 and 06. We were destroyed. Even the Dragons beat. Well, as we always say, Cheika used to put the Espoirs out against the Dragons, but we
like,
still lost
back
all
in
4
the day,
games.
Newport were a very strong team. Like I remember we played them in the European Cup match and the lights went out. And it was probably the only reason that we won that game.
Completely broke their
Rhythm.
Yeah.
Rhythm, yeah. Actually, speaking of which, we played the Ospreys, and
Yep.
they obviously we know
That's an easy game.
it is. But we know they are our bogey team. And
They'll
we
wheel out that playbook again.
in
That
the order, yes. But the last time we beat them was in the 09-10 season. Now we drew with them 9-9 last year, but still we have a fairly unimpressive record in the Liberty Stadium.
beat them in the Heineken Cup
Beat them in the Heineken.
under Joe. We never beat them under Joe Schmidt away.
Yeah.
In fact, we lost to them at home a lot as well in 2 finals. One of the finals was Schmidt. But Matt O'Connor actually has that on his CV that we beat the Ospreys in the Liberty under him.
Back, should we?
They're a tough team, and unlike they're a Welsh team that are going well in Europe, which doesn't often happen regularly. You know, they're playing very well. They've always if I would have wished to play almost any other team except for the Ospreys right now, because it would have been nice to get another game with another bit of momentum. You know, keep it going.
They're getting over their World Cup hangover as well, because they certainly had one also. They were having a shite time, but
The Ospreys had the omens are certainly there. They had a very good Christmas period. They won both their
Both
local
games.
derbies. They've won their last 5 Pro 12 games. They're on a bit of a
they
streak.
they are gathering momentum, which is worrying when the Ospreys start to gather momentum. But you just never know. We're not in a bad place ourselves. We're starting to gather a bit of momentum
we're
too.
getting momentum. We're getting bodies back, as Jay says. That downward slope that we kind of encountered after the World Cup as a result of that kind of, we seem to be back on an even keel after that.
Well, I think Munster, for example, they're kind of short of players. We have the players there if we can just gel them right, you know, and they seem to be coming back into a bit of form. Plus, we're getting these the 3 we mentioned: Maloney, Ringrose, and Van der Fleer, and there's 3 or 4 others as well that are
You mentioned
Dooley and
John,
Tracy.
Well, we're going to be without Keane Healy certainly. Because A, he's injured, B, he's suspended. So
and he's had an
and he's had an operation today on his. Although I think they'd said, right, he's suspended. We'll take the opportunity, because it apparently it's just one of those, you know,
scope,
clearing out a bit of scar tissue. So I think they've just taken the opportunity that the
although
suspension
that's if you
presented them.
believe the Leinster.
Well, I'll tell you one thing.
press
I certainly
release.
did not believe that Luke McGrath missed the match on Sunday with an infected blister on his foot.
Who knows? Who cares, really? You know, as long as he's back
Yeah.
as soon as possible.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, John, you mentioned earlier about over Christmas we blend, like back in the old days, blending the mixture of teams, and we stood up
It
quite
was a
well
masterclass, yeah.
because of obviously the results. And I think I saw a question coming through on Twitter, a similar kind of tone. What will we play? Will we play our strongest selection? I mean, bearing in mind Europe's around the corner, we're out of it now.
Yeah.
Do we? You know, I'm not saying like I think a lad
Well,
asked.
we've
we'll
two,
ask the
we've
question
two
now.
questions actually. So we go. The first one is from James Murphy, and he asks: injuries permitting, would you play Teo/Ringrose with Luke at 11, Issa at 14 or 15, or senior guys first and Ringrose on the bench? And then it's more of a generic question in the light of Teo signing for Worcester Warriors.
Yeah.
My attitude to that would be that whether the guy's going or whether the guy's staying, and it's the same with Johnny Sexton, it's the same with Andrew Conway. While they're Leinster players,
Ian Madigan.
and Ian Madigan, same with Ian Madigan. Whilst Ian and Ben are Leinster players, they're used
For the benefit
for the
of
benefit
Leinster.
of Leinster.
Yeah.
So if in a match the best thing to do is to start Ben Teo with Luke Fitzgerald, then we do that. If the best thing is to start Ben Teo with Ringrose, we do that. We just do what's best for Leinster.
Well,
We select the best team that we can.
there's one positive about it, right? About the two of those guys leaving. No decisions have to be made to keep them sweet, if you like.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't have to say, oh, we'll have to start him at 12 because, you know, we want him to stay next season.
Yeah.
Or we have to start Teo in all the matches because we want to really make sure he signs again. So they're not signing, so you do the opposite. If they're the best,
Yeah, yeah.
like you just said, if they're the best in the position, you play them. I think Ringrose is going to get a bit of a run in Europe just
Yeah.
to see is he up for that level before the Six Nations comes about.
I was disappointed to see him not getting much. I think he got 2 minutes in the match in the Aviva Stadium.
Yeah.
I just think that it would have benefited a young man like he is
Mm-hmm.
to play in front of whatever,
Yeah.
50, 40,000 people.
Possibly, but I think he will. I think he will start. Well, I hope in this case,
I
that he
think-
will start against Bath in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks actually now.
Yeah, it is. I think that what Leinster will do is they'll play as many big guns as possible for this game. They'll play them for Bath, and if anybody needs a rest, it'll be the away game against
Yeah.
Wasps because
You
let's
wanna-
face
you
it.
want to put on a show for your home crowd anyway. I mean.
Yeah, well, let's face it. We don't. By the time, even if we win 100-0 against Bath, we've having a hope of getting out of the pool.
But so just to interrupt, Stephen Harris asks thoughts on selection for the EPCR game. So this is kind of he means
Feeds
both
into
games. Do we? In terms, he's talking about in terms of the construction of the squad. Do we deregister senior players to give younger guys some European experience? I don't know if there's many younger guys that we haven't registered because of the additional squad size. We had to add an extra 3
Yeah,
guys
we
that
did.
we didn't have last year. So
we've 4 academy guys in there
He's
already.
talking about maybe Keane Kelleher or Adam Byrne or that, but I'm not sure that they're.
does that-
You need to
like-
play them in the Pro 12
Like,
first.
would we
a bit more.
just put the shoe on the other foot? If we were playing, you know, if we were playing, like say for instance, say we were Toulon, or we had already played a particular club that had, and we'd beaten them in the 2 Christmas games, and then all of a sudden they decided to deregister their stars,
yeah. No, I
and
agree.
bring in
I
their reserves. I mean, or their academy, like that's taking the Mickey out of the,
Yeah, no,
out
I
of the
agree,
tournament.
I agree.
Yeah, it's showing it disrespect. Yeah,
We've always been very critical of French teams
doing
They're
that. Yeah.
doing almost exactly that.
Yeah.
So
I remember a few years ago we went over to the match over in Exeter, and we put up good display on the day of our match. I remember going into a boozer to watch, hoping against hope that I think it was
Munster and
Munster
Racing.
and Racing, and Racing put out their Zeds,
And then they had a guy sent off
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah,
they
that was
Yeah.
like-
clearly didn't give them a rashers.
Yeah. Well, you know, they didn't give a rashes about Leinster qualifying. Let's face it, and why should they?
No, that's
but-
true.
But in terms of just being professional in and of
Yeah,
yourself, I
yeah.
think,
You know,
I
you've
think-
said it 100 times in this show, Dave. The English clubs, you know, if there was an
Oh,
English
yeah.
They
club,
try, yeah.
Yeah.
they would have tried, and even if they had lost all
But there's a
4,
difference between not trying and not sending your best players.
Yeah, but
like
there's a
an English
difference-
team
there's a
could
difference
send.
There's a difference between, say, selecting, we'll say, I don't know, Dara Fanning and Fergus McFadden with Zane Kirshner at fullback, than playing Mick McGrath, Keane Kelleher, and Adam Byrne.
Yeah.
There's a difference. I mean, you can rotate your squad and still send out a strong team and try and do your
Which
best.
is what
to
I
win.
think we'll do.
Or you can kind of chuck it.
The other thing you've got to look at, and people overlook this all the time when you hear people crowing to have younger players thrown into the team. it's all about combinations in your team. There's no point in throwing 5, 6, 7 younger players in to get experience, because what are they going to get experience of? Other poor fuckers like themselves being thrust into something they're not ready for. What you need is a really strong combination with a younger player alongside. Let's say 2 really strong back rowers with a young guy, or a really strong second row with a young guy, or a couple of young front rowers on the bench, or one at the centre, but one of the wingers. You don't want all of those things. You want 2, maybe 3 at a push, and you want to try and build in the squad. In the size of a squad we have, you need to build continuity through all the. So you've got to look at your core players that are going to make the team when all your players are there, and they're going to be backbone in your team, like Avisa and Asewa, who are going to be around all season. You need to use guys like that as links between the first team guys and the guys you're trying to bring in to give them experience. It doesn't work. It's a team selection is an art much more than a science. Obviously it's both.
There's also the thing as well. There's also a situation where what do you learn from a guy who's the same age as you, who's got the same level of experience of you, as you both watch an international run between you?
Yep.
You're not going to actually learn anything. What you learn from a more narrowed player inside you telling you, okay, if you take a step to the left, right, he won't be able to run between us, and
or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever. You learn from just those minute adjustments that you learn as you get more experience.
But you know that Sean O'Brien learned from Rocky Elson, for example.
Oh God, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and Shane Jennings.
Yeah. But is 2 young kids going to learn off each other? No.
No, they're not. No, I agree.
That's
I agree. I mean, we didn't really. I mean, Cheika gave a lot of guys starts, but did we really benefit from those guys getting those games in the Dragons?
No, because they'd be forgotten about for the rest of the fucking season.
I don't think we did.
Glasgow was
he'd
treated
the
same
send
way.
A team that was 13 guys, Mallow Kelly and Bernard Jackman.
Yeah,
and that was it.
Glasgow was the same because they were rubbish at the time, and I remember the one where Dominic Ryan tackled Chris Cussler. I think it was his debut.
Yeah, and he got yellow carded.
Got yellow carded for basically
making a great tackle.
Concussing himself on. I think he was actually out for a second or two on top of Chris Cussler, but he got, and I think we got 4 yellow cards in that game. Mm-hmm. But again, that was a team of inexperience with maybe a Bernard. I don't remember the lineup exactly, but maybe a Bernard Jackman and a Mallow Kelly or a Stan Wright or somebody was in there, and a lot of those players didn't feature again. If you look at Ian Madigan's caps under Cheika, he had a few at full back, but he get one and then get nothing for forever.
9 months.
And you get another one against whatever the other shit team was, or maybe the next season against the same team. I mean, who's going to learn with that? Especially away. You want to be bringing these lads on at home in front of their home crowd, get them a few games first.
Although you have to say, Cheika did bring through.
Oh, I'm not knocking him.
He did. Yeah. He brought through Luke.
He did some incredible stuff.
Keane, like in fairness to him, he did bring through Luke Fitzgerald, Keane Healy, Jamie Heaslip. These guys.
Sean O'Brien.
I remember at the time.
Rob Kearney.
Rob Kearney. I remember at the time,
Shall we go on?
When he took over, 2 years later, they were on the lines.
Yeah. I mean, but what I'm saying is, in terms of the next level down, I mean, to a certain extent, as he said himself, it's not really his problem. That's the academy guy's job.
Yeah.
But I to go back to the original question, I don't think that going out in European competition with a very callow team is the right way. Now, picking some promising yet inexperienced guys alongside the experienced guys is a good idea because we may be out of the competition, but it doesn't mean we can't use it for something.
Well, we should be using it for the guys that are starting to make, starting to push for being regulars or starters on the first 15, like the Ring Roses, the
Van der Fleers, Maloney's,
and those guys should be included now in the squad if they're not in.
James Tracy is another guy.
They are. Well, he's on a full contract or a development contract.
I appreciate that they're in the squad, but what I mean is starting their first name on the team sheet.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I mean, I think that we're in a situation now with Van der Fleer, and I think that selection has shown that in the last couple of weeks that he and Sean O'Brien are going to be sharing duties a fair bit, and that Sean needn't necessarily be off the pitch while he's on it.
Yeah,
because we're very talented, we're very gifted with back rows, we're very laden down with good back rows at the moment. So
Yeah,
it's an interesting situation.
And speaking of back rows, there's been a fair bit of media talk and chatter.
Oh yeah.
And I think one of the lads.
We did have a
brought
question
up-
from Colin Meehan. Why does 2-time Lion, 3-time Heineken Cup winner, 3-time Six Nation winner Jamie Heaslip get such a hard time from the Irish media?
Because he's pissed them off, because he's probably a bit, impatient with their line of questioning at times. And, if I was him, I might feel exactly the same. I don't know. But, there's a two-way street there as well. The journalists are they're just doing their job as well. But, there's a gathering amount of people. I know a lot of Munster fans wouldn't be big Heaslip fans.
No, but it's like if you think
he's not a big Munster fan.
if you think about
Sure he isn't.
15 years ago, the Leinster fans hadn't really mobilised at the time. Munsters certainly had, and if there was a 50-50 call, Munster guys always seemed to put down the Leinster candidate for the position. They couldn't really argue about the Darcys and O'Driscolls, but when it did come to, I remember Guy Easterby
Eric
was
Miller.
selected for the match in Scotland and turned out to be the foot and mouth match
There was
over
war.
Stringer, and there was war. Like as you say, there was Foley and Eric Miller because of Foley's little.
And Big Vic.
There was, the thing is, and people often forget this. When Jamie Heaslip was young enough to have been a fan of Leinster, when the media were writing awful shite about Leinster and saying,
Right.
and the thing is, the other side of it is, has anyone noticed that he's never off with the radio journalists, he's never off with the television journalists.
Just the print.
It's just the print media.
And he's got a chip
Don't
on his
blame him.
shoulder about print.
Yeah.
However, does it really matter
No,
what
it doesn't
what
matter, Dan.
those
No,
people
no.
think of him?
Well-
Like, all that matters is what his teammates think of him. And I have never heard anybody from any province who was a player say a word against Jamie
I
Heaslip
I
ever.
agree with you, but if you're captain of your country
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of ancillary work that the captain has to do as
Yeah.
regard
And
schmoozing,
if he's a
sponsors.
guy who doesn't like it, then
Well, I'm
Doesn't
sure.
he mind smooths and sponsors? I don't think it's a
No,
problem. with
no,
that
neither
at
do
all.
I. But if part of that is to turn up at sponsors' gigs with the media there, maybe they might look upon that as a negative point for being a point to the captain.
yeah. Well, the other who are the
I
other
would say
candidates?
yeah.
You've
Well,
got
just to go back to that, if you look at all the kind of rugby players, I don't think there's a more commercially aware rugby player
No,
in Ireland than Jamie
agree
Heaslip.
with you.
no.
And I'd say if you were a sponsor and you were organising a do, you'd make sure you had a team journalist there anyway. So
Yeah.
that's the other candidates are the other side of it is actually for the first time in a while we've got some serious candidates in terms of just
O'Mahony?
the breadth and depth of them. Yeah,
Who's
Peter
out till the
O'Mahony,
end of the season.
He's out. Problem is he's out to the end of the season, and I don't think that he's guaranteed his position in the team
That's true.
because Reece
On-
Ruddock is playing the skin off things.
If you look at it purely from a perspective, like leave the media side of it, if you look at it on almost any other perspective, Jamie Heaslip is always fit. He's always starting. He always plays 80 minutes. He's got, as I say, I've never heard another professional rugby player criticise his attitude ever. I've heard plenty of other people who don't know the guy, never played with him. Yeah, that's an aspect of it, but it's not. It shouldn't be the deciding factor. Rory Best seems to be the other big
And
candidate,
he's the best of the other candidates.
definitely.
It's
Yeah.
if you'll pardon the pun.
but he's a really, really team kind of a guy. He's really good with the media as well. He can be honest without being a creep. Without being creeping or sycophantic or
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. He can lay it on the line without seeming like and actually say something without, like I'm not doing, without actually going over the top. So he'd be all the things that people are criticising Heaslip for, he wouldn't have a problem with. He's I'm sure he's a great relationship with practically everybody. So yeah, and all his fellow professionals respect him. However, he's in the front row. He's got his head in a scrum, and he's after every scrum he's not going to be able to see what's going on. B, he's not going to play 80 minutes of every game because hookers just don't. So there are reasons against him.
You are in a situation where you're talking 50, 55 minutes and your captain's gone off the pitch.
Exactly.
That's just the way of modern rugby. You rotate your front row. But I do think that those are the only two options, to be honest with you, because nobody else, even like people are talking about Sean O'Brien.
And Conor Murray
You
and
look-
Johnny
You
Sexton.
look at
and-
Sean O'Brien's injury profile over the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. Maybe in the next 12 months he goes on to prove it wrong. But you can't count the guy.
if he had gone to Toulon, they would have been fairly pissed off with him for the amount of time he.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he just hasn't been on the pitch, so you can't. I think there's 2 candidates, either of which I think would do a perfectly fine job. You know,
I'd be happy to see either Heaslip or Best, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And if Sean O'Brien was going to stay fit, I'd be happy to see him too.
Yeah.
Sexton and Murray, less so. I'm not sure Murray's a real captain type. Great player, fabulous, first name in the team sheet, but I don't think I don't get the impression. What do I know?
I don't know.
I don't know the guy, but
I
don't get the
no
impression
knowledge of him as a captain whatsoever. So
And I've rarely seen, if ever, Johnny Sexton captain. The
no,
team.
never.
No.
I wouldn't even consider him enough. I think he's an option.
He's enough in his head. And the
he's
kicker,
enough to be doing.
the kicker as well.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the kicker and the captain so much. Anyway,
So that would be our best or Heaslip really.
Yeah.
Well, it's obviously the first show of the year, so why don't we have a review of the last? And it pretty much is half a year because our first match of the new season was going way back to the 8th of August when we played Wales in a warm-up friendly in the Millennium Stadium.
mm-hmm. Long season this year.
It's a very long season.
One of the things, actually, funny enough, we were talking about him earlier. One of the things that Dave Nucifora skirted around was the World Cup campaign. Was in his verdict of the World Cup campaign.
Mm-hmm.
He said everything but the World Cup campaign was a failure. He said it wasn't successful in A, B, C, and D. So would you consider it a failure? No. But ultimately, I certainly was quite harsh on Declan Kidney in 2011 as a result of his World Cup campaign.
Yeah. I remember that well, Dave.
And ultimately, ours ended up the same way.
Yeah,
now there are mitigating
but hold on.
circumstances.
I remember I heard. I think it was O'Driscoll was asked about it, and he said it was a shambles. So as opposed to, I haven't heard any criticism, and the players haven't retired, obviously, but I don't think a training
off the pitch. Is that
session.
what you're saying? Oh yeah.
Well, on the pitch, off the pitch, Rogara actually it was said it was a shambles. Like they had no game plan.
Mm-hmm.
There was rows between the head coach and.
I heard O'Driscoll saying something similar about that he didn't understand what the game plan was, and for Brian O'Driscoll to say that,
Yeah, but at the
if
end
he doesn't understand it, no one's
at the end of the
any
day,
chance.
the results are almost identical.
I know. In the cold light of day.
That's. I mean, the results are almost identical.
Everything went great until we got to the quarterfinal.
Everything went great until they had to go well, and then they didn't. But the thing is, I mean,
but the writing was on the wall in the Italy game. I mean, I remember being at it, and 2 years before we murdered Italy in the Viva Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Start of the year, even without our number 1 out half, without our number 2 out half, without our number 3 out half,
quite possibly,
he still had Keatley on, and we still managed to win the game at a canter.
Mm-hmm.
And then there just seemed to be no imagination, no fluidity whatsoever. It was a very, very poor game.
maybe the Irish rugby psyche just isn't suited to the World Cup.
I'm not sure,
Who knows?
but knockout rugby is such a big thing in Irish rugby, more so than leagues.
Yeah.
Like our schools are based on it. Our European
The tradition of Irish rugby is a knockout tradition. Leagues, like in England, are only a relatively recent thing. Actually, not even a recent thing; they're a modern thing in rugby. So I agree with that. But the thing is, we started the year rather than the season with a Six Nations win, and now to a certain extent, in order to keep the boat flowing along nicely, we need another Six Nations win, which I think we're going to get.
Really?
Yeah, no, I think we're in good position to do it.
Think too soon for Eddie Jones and Guy Novez?
Yeah, I think it's too soon for Eddie Jones, and I think it's too late
Wouldn't
for
bet
Guy
against.
Novez.
Wouldn't bet. I don't know what you mean. Yeah. Wouldn't bet against Gatlin though.
No, I wouldn't bet against Gatlin, but he's got too many injuries. I mean, there's a big talk today about who they'll play if Liam Williams isn't fit. There's a big, on one of the Welsh newspapers running a poll. Who will we play if Liam Williams isn't fit to play Ireland? But the reality is, they're talking about the third choice fullback.
There won't be a stroke of work done on Paddy's weekend if we get we get through the first 3 games,
Yeah.
which are the hard 3 games, and 2
As
of them
opposed
away.
to traditionally when there's loads of work done on Paddy's weekend.
Well, the Monday after.
I can see Paddy's weekend. I'm always nose to the grindstone. I am.
God, I wouldn't like to
Although
work.
generally that's vomiting.
Tell you, I wouldn't like to work for John, would you?
No, I wouldn't. No, Jesus Christ! I'll tell you, if you're going to have a computer broken, get a broken computer on Paddy's Day.
Thanks.
No, I think that there's another Six Nations at least in the current team.
Well, what I
without
mean
any
is,
major rebuilds.
it'll be a historic occasion. Ireland have never won 3 Six Nations on the bounce ever in the history of the world, as far as I'm aware. Maybe they did in 1893 or something. I don't think so, though.
Isn't it 2016, the centenary of the year the Brits shot us all? All dead. We're all dead since then. 100 years ago we died.
So there was no sex in Ireland
there's-
before the Late Show days.
So there's that as well. Yeah, I think I just think there's another championship in this team. I don't know if there's a Grand Slam in it, but I think there's definitely a championship in it because I think Joe plans campaigns well, except for the World Cup.
The next one we win.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. So, like from a Leinster point of view, then we got off to a disastrous start in the European Cup. You know,
Oh, Europe has been a complete
that game
clusterfuck.
against Wasps just was to death now, because if you can't win your home matches, you really have no choice, no chance.
And it was, on paper, judging on the previous season's form, our easiest game in Europe. As it turned out, Bath were shite and Wasps were brilliant, so effectively
That's
Bath
still our easiest game. in
is
Europe.
going to be our easiest game. So, unfortunately, we have no head of steam.
The other side of the thing is if we were playing the way we are now, with the players we have available to us, pretty much now, maybe a bit more depth in second row, I'd fancy us to put up a better show against Wasps.
I remember when we did the show too at the time
we'll
of
see.
the Wasps game. Like, we had 20 guys, 19 from Ireland and 1 coming back from South Africa.
Yeah.
Coming back, filtering back into the squad, all at different levels of injuries and, fitness levels, and bodies
Head.
been exhausted. Wasps had 2 or 3 guys,
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
remember from doing that show, coming back, that were involved at the World Cup. So that meant that the club had
No disruption.
control of all of those players. They could
Yeah.
bring them through their pre-season, they could nurture them, and they were all, as we can see, say, under Kurt McQuilton's defensive pattern, it takes a while for people to readjust to a new system.
Yeah.
Those guys had only to learn the one system.
Yeah, but they hadn't played that many games. I mean, I think they
Well,
had
they
3
hadn't.
games
They
in their
hadn't,
league.
But what they had was they had a collectivity of training together.
That's
of
true,
the
yeah.
They
club
were
ma-
together, yeah.
They were
Yeah.
together
the club
for a
monitoring
long
them.
time, yeah.
And they had warm-up matches too. They played friendlies as well.
No, I think that's I agree entirely. Well, I would do. It's my point we're talking about. I don't know if we'd beat them because as it turns out, Wasps have hit the ground running and are going really, really well and have integrated, as you say, all those new players. Blah, blah, blah. But I think we put up a considerably better fist of things if we were to play them now.
Well, let's see how we play them in
Yeah.
3 weeks time.
And then obviously, like our season has kind of turned around a little bit, especially those results over the last couple of weeks.
Well, we've played 3 Interpros and we've won all 3 of them, and that's
So
always
far, yeah.
that's always something to, warm the cockles. I mean, the game against Toulon in the Aviva was disappointing because it illustrated that we were able to get close, but not close enough, and that we weren't able to.
Yeah, we
just
just
couldn't
got
compete with them.
just
And
got
that's-
clobbered on
It's not a
the.
matter of playing
on the
well, playing
subs.
badly.
Well,
we couldn't
well, I
compete.
think-
That's the thing that was
But
disappointing.
we were in some sort of, we just seemed to be unable to attack. I think
That's still a
again-
problem.
Again, from memory, there was 5 games out of 7 that we didn't score in the second half. Like, I mean, how can you possibly compete? Like, you're saying we can't compete. How can you possibly play a rugby match if you can't score any points, regardless of whether it's a pot at the sticks in the second half?
Well, that's it. I mean, we went a number of matches without scoring any points in
I
the
think
second
it was
half.
5 out of
Yeah,
7.
yeah. I mean, that was.
Well, but we did come back from it with, and you'll probably know the answer to this, Dave. Was it our best result ever in the professional era in Thomond Park? Biggest margin?
We
of-
margin it might.
I think it might well have been.
All right,
I think it was a 17-point margin.
It's not something I thought about, but yeah, I think so because obviously the intercept try at the end put a
gloss
nice
on it.
little cherry on the cake.
Yeah.
But I think it might end up being that's
Because
that's
we usually
going
only win by a point or
Yeah,
two.
look that
I
one
think
up,
we
yeah.
one big win down there, but I don't think it was 17 points.
Yeah.
And we didn't play them down there too often
If you
for a
went back
long
to the
time.
70s now, I'd say
Yeah, that wasn't the professional era though.
Okay.
Aha, he caught you. So, compared to where we were, we'd say not even at the start of the season. Compared to where we were in November, we're actually in a much healthier place.
Yeah.
Well,
Of course.
the thing that sort of gives me some
Hope.
Solace.
hope, I suppose,
Solace.
is that
A hug.
we have been blooding some new players,
Yeah.
and I'm delighted to see we've brought through guys at centre, prop, wing, out half, and hooker, and second row, and also back rowers.
Mhm.
So practically all throughout the team. This coaching ticket is new, but they are also, I don't think often enough, but they are certainly prepared to give guys game time in some of the lesser games, and it might take a while for them to trust. Like say, Ringrose, I was crying out for him to be included at the very start of the season.
Mhm.
I think Cullen might have been reluctant to bring him through, and then when he did,
Start him on the wing and
gave
moved him in a little
him in
bit.
the wing, didn't give him enough minutes. But when he has, as he did, and he put faith in him down in Thomond Park.
Or maybe it's just
He's
it's
been
a
rewarded.
development process. I mean, Cullen didn't have much choice in the matter, to be honest with you. I mean, he was missing 20 guys plus injuries.
Mm.
So, I mean, he didn't really have a whole lot of choice in the matter. But he did it. He still sees things. I mean, it could have gone the other way.
Yeah, but
In
don't
fairness,
forget-
he could have gone a conservative route. He could have picked Dara Fanning,
Yeah.
and he could have picked. Well, maybe not Mick McGrath, because Mick McGrath is actually a young player.
Yeah, I like him.
But he could have picked Dara Fanning. He could have picked older guys like that. He
Or
could
he could have
have
gone for Lottie DeCurry.
yeah, he could have gotten
Or a guy of that ilk.
Or he could have. Well, what I was going to say was he could have asked and tried and pleaded, and he would have said yes to Gordon Darcy to stay a bit longer. But he didn't. I mean, he did. He gave game time to Noel Reid. He gave game time to, as you said, to Ringrose on the
Carl
wing.
Marsh.
Carl Marsh, Collie O'Shea, I think, got a run.
Even Ross Byrne got
Ross Byrne got a
run,
That's
yeah.
correct. Yeah. So I mean, in fairness to him, he did do that. I mean,
Maybe it's a bit of a shotgun approach that you have to throw a load of them against the wall and hope
and see what
some
sticks.
of them stick.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Dara Mulligan asked a question. It's kind of in terms of
Fits
Ringrose.
in.
With the rapid, he asks, with the rapid emergence of Ringrose, has this quelled the groundswell for Henshaw to be shifted up to us? No.
I'll see your Ringrose emerging with a Tio and Madigan leaving,
Yeah.
and there you go. I mean,
And I'll add a side of emerging Ringrose to a main course of Henshaw.
Henshaw running
You know?
straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they'd be a lovely partnership, actually.
I think it'd be a great partnership.
I'm so opposite that view. I don't want him to come. If he comes, great, we'll accept him. But
Yeah.
I want him
I'm
to
going to
stay
tell
in
him you
Connacht.
said.
I'd love to see him stay in Connacht as well.
I
Absolutely.
think for the betterment of rugby in Ireland.
What I want to see is him and Stuart McCluskey for Ireland.
Yeah, well,
Before
McCluskey's certainly playing well enough.
I'll tell you who's playing well enough. It's a guy who kind of fell off the radar.
or either of them in
He was
Ringrose.
made out of glass. Was Luke Marshall.
Yeah.
Mm.
Luke Marshall against Toulouse was astonishingly good. He was Aviva Stadium that day.
In both games.
In both games, yeah.
McCluskey helped though.
Oh yeah, well you have to have the balance. I mean, you have to have that balance, and the two of them work very well together. Remember, that's an Ulster team that without Darren Cave, without Stuart Olding,
Yeah.
they're still to come into that team.
And
Like,
Jared
still
Payne.
good. Jared Payne's not there. You know,
Yeah.
they do have a bit of strength there. But no,
Tommy Bowe.
if
Tommy Bowe.
if Henshaw is going to come to Leinster, I'd love to see him playing with Ringrose.
Of course.
And that would free up Luke to play on the wing. Because I mean, all the talk about everything, I think that the guy has been a bit forgotten. I think he's been our best player this season.
Luke has been a
Luke has
revelation.
been great, yeah.
Yeah.
But just as he
True
gets
position.
bedded in at 12, you want to back him out, back out to 11 again.
Well, I want him on the pitch. And
me too.
I think the best way of getting him on the pitch and getting we're going to assume that Henshaw has come to Leinster and you've stopped crying. No, we're going to assume that Henshaw has come to Leinster. The best way to get all those good players on the pitch is with Luke on the wing.
I was expecting that to either way, whether he was coming or not, to have been announced this week.
We were chatting earlier
Week's
on.
not over yet.
This week
We were
is
chatting
over,
earlier
yeah.
on in the week. Now I don't know. I haven't a clue what way it's going to fall, but presumably the IRFU are hedging their bets. Maybe they're thinking, well, let's see how Connacht go.
No.
I don't think that's a factor.
I don't think it's either a factor or an option, because if
How
the
long do
IRF
you have to wait
Yeah.
to see?
Yeah. If Connacht are in a situation where it's the last weekend of the thing and they need a win and they don't get the win and then
Oh,
they have
but-
to plan
no,
for the
but
entire next season.
Yeah,
without
but
their
I
guy.
think they're going to say there's a cut-off point and you need to have X number of points, and by that, he'd be third in the league and have.
Maybe they want to see, because they've got double header against Scarlet. They're playing Scarlets twice. I'm not sure it's not in a row, obviously, but I think it's the end of January and now. They're playing the Scarlets, so or maybe it's in February, but it's quite soon. So if they can win those 2 games, maybe that might.
I don't know.
Well, whether they announce or not, the deal.
It was supposed to be an absolute dead cert done deal.
I think
Of
the deal
course.
has to be
Last
done.
year, so.
The deal will have to be done by February or March. Whether it's announced or not, it'll have to be done by then. I have a feeling it's done. I think. I mean, it's just.
Well, all the journos were saying, yeah, it's definitely. I remember Thornley been on about 3 weeks ago saying, "What are they still asking about this?"
Yeah.
That's signed and sealed.
So we'll
Obviously,
see.
it isn't. But
Because there's another question actually in terms of, if you like, player movement. Declan Corcoran on Facebook says, with Theo gone, Triggs on a short-term contract. We have 2 free NIQ spaces coming up. And a project player space.
yeah,
He mentions Kirshner, but Kirshner actually has another year. I don't think he's aware of that. So
he does.
I think what we need to do is sign a reserve half back again.
Well, look, Nusafora did the old Gay Byrne thing there earlier on when he said it's
There's one
it's
for everyone in the audience.
no, he said it's a target, not a limit, or it's a limit, not a target. Sorry. So the player, the NIQ situation is a limit. It doesn't mean you have to have that amount of players
But
every
if
year.
if Leinster have put aside a budget, let's say £1 million, right, and they say, right, our NIQs are going to cost us £1 million. You know what? I'd love us to buy 1 or maybe 2 and spend our budget on 2 instead of spread it over 4.
However, and people don't seem to get this a lot. When we had all our big fancy, CJ van der Linde, Rocky Elsom and Isa all starting at the same time, and we had Whitaker and we had Stan Wright and we had Felipe. How could I forget him? All at the same time. They were starting players, every single one of them. Now we've got how many centrally contracted players have we got? About 6 or 7. They are our NIQs, if you like, are our top players. They're the guys, and from an IRFU point of view and a David Nusafora point of view, what we're supposed to be doing is getting in players to play in their positions when they're out, not signing a new Rocky Elsom, not signing.
I don't think that.
I think there's room for a couple of those.
I don't think there should be a need to worry about, to a certain extent, Nusafora and Schmidt, and this is why. Because, like you said, I agree with you. I don't think we should be looking to sign. I don't think we need to sign really any marquee players. Maybe a lock, maybe. But
Scrum half as well, Dave.
Yeah, what we need is.
We won't get a scrum half
you know,
of that calibre
there's-
with Pinar still playing.
I don't
just
think
won't.
we need that. What I think we need is a really high quality, experienced scrum half to support McGrath and McCarthy, who I think are really talented guys.
Munster
Might end up in the Goppers
Munster
Madigan
signed,
situation there.
Thomas O'Leary.
I want to.
So not a bad choice. Like Thomas O'Leary was
Oh,
picked.
he was ponderous as fuck.
Okay, hold on.
He
Thomas
was
O'Leary
really bad.
was picked for the Lions
Mm-hmm.
in 09. He fell out of love with the game and went to England and, played in England for a few years. But you're talking about somebody to come on, when Murray is away for, maybe a third or half of the season with the Irish team. You got somebody, you might say he's ponderous.
I think he was as ponderous as the ball Leinster let him have. In
But,
fairness.
No, he was standing at the back of Rooks, writing a sonnet, waiting for the bus. Don't know what the hell he was doing, but he was looking left and right and making no fucking
I don't
decision.
think Tomas O'Leary had too many problems that couldn't be fixed with good coaching. And on top of that, I think he was a fantastic footballer. As a utility player, you could play him on the wing, you could play him at fullback, you could play him without half.
Yeah.
He was a very, very. He would be the exact kind of guy.
He was a physical enough guy as well.
I'd like to sign a
In
guy
his day.
who could support. We're talking about all the exciting young players we have, right?
Mhm.
I want a
And
guy.
he was quick, which he isn't so much anymore.
He's still pretty sharpish. I'd want a guy who could support those young guys, not necessarily replace them. So, I mean, he's not a player. You know my views on him. But if somebody said Stringer, a player of that ilk, that wouldn't be a problem. That would be a good player to have. Because some of our key young guys would learn a lot from him, both at out half and at scrum half. So you're talking about guys like that. Those are the guys I think we should be targeting. I think we need to sign a really, really fucking good tight head lock.
There's room for that, yeah.
I do think the players we sign should be guys who can help support and develop our emerging talent rather than replace them.
Another thing I'd like to see, as regards a kind of a backup-y player, is somebody like Jason's favourite player, Tequili Nayaravoro. Not necessarily a guy that big or whatever, but a bit of fast Pacific Islander out in the wing. A guy who's not necessarily, because a lot of those players tend to be brilliant going forward, not so good in defence, but a guy who can just score tries when you need tries scored. A guy who can run through people, around people, over people.
We convinced Timothy Nangusa to come back and tell him it's warmer in Dublin than it was in Belfast.
Whatever, somebody like that, I'd like to see. Not necessarily a marquee. I totally agree with you, Dave. The marquee, if we're getting a marquee signing, it has to be a lock, and preferably a tight head lock. Can't think of who it might be at this stage, but that's what we need to sign.
He's really good. He was deadly in the World Cup.
He was.
We should snap him up.
And he was great that year, and he played for the Warriors, and they won the Super 50.
Whatever happened to him in the year?
Well, I don't know. But anyway,
I do think that's true, because I do think that Leinster have players who are really good at, well, not really good because it hasn't worked for us this year, but will be really good when it does all settle down, at scoring tries that have been very well constructed.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have to construct them. We don't have a guy who can take a loose kick and just through blinding pace and sheer bullock power run it all the way back. We don't have that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have that guy in the organisation at all. I don't think we have it in the country, let alone. So I think maybe having a guy like that would be useful.
You can go two ways. You can go bulk with speed, which is your man Nayaravoro, or you can go, Christian Wade type, who's just got pace to burn. Glasgow tried it with Carlin Isles. The guy never
Didn't
fitted
really
into
work
their
out.
team.
But there's guys like that. I mean, Gonava worked out very well for Leicester. He's been a huge player for them, and he plays that role. But he also plays as a centre and stuff like that. He fills a variety of roles for Leicester. I don't know if that would be my priority. Well, maybe, I don't know.
Certainly not a priority, but it's just another tool in the box that you could rely on when times were hard, like when you needed to try score.
A plethora of midfielders and back three players. So you're talking about bringing Henshaw through. There's Ringrose there. There's McFadden. There's the two Carneys. There's Nasiwa. There's Kirshner.
Adam Byrne, Keane Kelleher.
Okay, all those young kids coming through. So you can't really go out into the market and say, we're going to buy some now and have like 10 or 12 back five players.
Fair enough.
However, I would you cannot win a rugby match without having a pack that's going to kick the shite out of another pack.
Yeah.
And that's where we are weak, because we aren't.
Jesus, I don't know.
No, I think
second row maybe, but the rest of our
pack.
pack.
The whole is. I think we've
Our pack is cruncher.
Second row.
Second row a little
Not
bit.
one of those of our second rows would put the fear of God, as to quote O'Connell, into anyone.
I don't know about that.
Who would?
I think as a unit our pack does. Maybe not.
I said our second rows.
Yeah.
Devin Toner had scared the shite out of me. I mean, he's just so awkward to play against.
I mean, we don't have what you were saying, that kind of. I know what you mean, a kind of a hard
enforcer,
chalk, an enforcer, a Nathan Hines, a Jamie Cudmore.
I was about to say Jamie Cudmore is going to.
We don't have that
but
guy.
He's too old.
He's too old.
But no, you're right. We don't have that guy. I do think it's a pack, though. I think we have a brilliant pack.
He's probably younger than Brad Thorne was when he played for us.
With the exception of second row, we have two brilliant packs.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many teams in Europe have the resources at front and back row that we have. But like you say, there is that hole there.
There's a clamouring now for to bring back Mark. Well, I say clamouring. A few people have mentioned bringing back Mark Flanagan. Who, I don't know. I don't see a problem with it. I'm not saying he's a marquee player or he's going to solve all our tight head luck worries.
So we will be mid-table mediocrity.
He's 6'7"
and not qualify out.
And he's homegrown. He's playing in the championship. I know he is.
Okay, so if he was any good, why was he playing for a few seasons in Pro D2 and picked up by
bad run of injuries here, and he had to move on.
I think Mark Flanagan. I think there's a bit of a thing that we get excited about players because of their passports.
Well, that's the IRFU enforcing that.
I do think. I think that Mark Flanagan is a different discussion. It'd be nice if we had Mark Flanagan in our squad. It'd be very nice. I mean, he'd be a useful guy if we were playing against in the Pro 12.
So he would replace, say, Denton.
Yeah, he'd be useful
Yeah.
in that role.
So you're
But he's
he's
still
starting in a quarter-final of a
no,
European
he's
Cup.
not. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about him as a squad player and a good squad player. He'd be a useful squad player. But I still think we should sign.
We still haven't seen.
tight head pro.
We still haven't seen Mick Carney yet, and he's probably not going to be back till March. So we've been paying his wages since September, and he's been injured. So who knows what he could turn into. He was supposed to be the pick of the Connacht Blocks. We traded Ben Marshall. He went that way, and the other lad came this way. So
Ben Marshall and Quinn Rue in reality for him.
yeah. So he's got to be an upgrade on the two of them. You would think.
Yeah. Well, just going back to our review.
So just one guy we didn't talk about who's since the last time we did a show was Madigan.
Yeah.
Ian Madigan has signed for.
Oh
as
yeah.
everybody. I'm breaking news. Ian Madigan has signed for Bordeaux Bègles.
Yeah,
well, that was actually going to
And that's
lead into my next point.
Alright, okay.
I was going to say that there has been a lot of doom and gloom in the media about Irish rugby. Obviously, the national team was beaten against Argentina in the quarter-final of the World Cup. Neither Leinster, Munster,
Probably.
Ulster are going to qualify. Maybe Ulster, maybe Munster. Sorry, in the European Cup.
Maybe Ulster will too.
Maybe
Could
Ulster.
get a
Maybe
second.
Maybe so.
Do the double over on the Jacks.
But
Yeah, that's right.
there's an
It's
awful
soft
lot
game,
of there's an expectation, ridiculous expectation that an Irish team is going to win the European Cup every single year. This is ridiculous standards that somebody, whether it's in the media,
It's only every second year we're going to win.
it's crazy.
You have to win the league the other year to get into a decent position.
You do, but if you look at the amount of players that our team in the last few years have lost, not just internationals, but leaders within the team, Cullen, Jennings, O'Driscoll, Darcy, Horgan. Also we've got rid of one coaching ticket, which we have replaced with a totally inexperienced coach in his second ever season of coaching.
In fairness, I do think that they've got a bit of a free ride this year in terms of
The coaching.
the coaching thing. I don't think anyone's been overly critical of them.
Oh, I think they have after we were beaten in 4 of our matches in the European Cup, Dave.
I'd be critical. No, I think they made a few inexperienced errors, but I mean that's the learning process. I don't know how critical people have been of their European. I mean,
But it's like
I'm sure about
Madigan's going, oh my God, the end of the world. Madigan can't get on our first team. He couldn't get ahead of Jimmy Gotford. Ben Teo is going, oh my God, it just shows how far Leinster has fallen if Ben Teo is going to Worcester. First of all, Ben Teo wants to go to Worcester so he can qualify and play for England. Or is qualified to play for
I
England.
looked at all the English squad rosters, the Aviva Premiership squad rosters. Ben Teo hasn't signed for Worcester. Ben Teo has signed for England, and the only squad with a hole in its salary cap for next season is Worcester. That's
So the RFU were financing it basically.
that's simply what's happened.
That's what they do with all the rugby league guys coming in. They pay them £1 million or 900.
He is a rugby league guy, let's
That's
face
exactly
it.
what they've
But the
done.
ones from the play in
And people have been
Super
quite
Rugby.
sore about that. Ben Teo gave us 2 good years.
Yeah.
I mean, he came over here. We paid him to do a job. He did that job well. What more do you want?
Nothing. I want him the rest of the season committed, which
Although
Yeah,
I would have liked his conversation if it was reported as true in the media.
that
His
it
conversation with Joe Schmidt, I wish it had gone a bit better, and
Yeah.
that they had shaken hands and said, "Yeah, I will stay."
I
in
stay another
Ireland."
year. Yeah.
But it didn't happen,
didn't.
and that's professional
But
sport.
he's done everything we've asked him to do. He's played, and actually he's played very, very well. I
Yeah.
mean, considering that he came in from rugby league, he had a bit of rugby union experience, but he came in from rugby league. I thought he was certainly a lot more, infinitely more successful than Mr. Burgess.
he probably fancies a run under Eddie Jones too.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
I would. If I was 25 years younger and
Yeah.
a good rugby player.
Interestingly, just as an aside, John Mitchell has taken over the US Eagles.
Really?
So
Yeah,
that's-
Well,
for the next World Cup for 2017. Yeah,
And any
2019.
rumours on that
19, yeah. 17.
on Conor O'Shea going to Italy?
I think that was squished. I think it was squished with a number of sniggers actually from.
I think a lot of the thing about Conor O'Shea is he's got 3 kids and they're all in school and he's settled in England
There you
for
go.
20
That's the
years
thing.
and who wants to fucking move when there's a lot more to life
Well,
If you're getting a
especially it's a
decent
new language
wage.
to learn his wife and his kids.
It might be different if his kids were in their late teens or whatever, and there was a life experience element
I
to
think
it.
they're starting to get that way
Yeah.
already.
I don't know. I mean, his name comes up. He's a bit like Alan Kirbishley, only better. Every time a job is vacant, his name is attached to it.
That's true.
And
Jake White is the other one that's always attached.
He never seems. But he's never given any inclination that he wants to leave Harlequins. I mean, or indeed England. I mean, he's worked within the English.
Yeah, he's
sports
worked for the
framework.
RFU for a long time.
He's
as well.
worked for Sport England as well. So I don't know. I don't think he's ever an option in terms of moving. But no, I think it's a pity that Ben Teo didn't work out in terms of the Irish thing. But he's done a good job for us, and I think he's been one of our better players over the last 2 years. I mean, it hasn't been easy being a Leinster player the last 2 years.
No, but isn't it?
No.
It's just depressing every time you read a rugby article written by an Irish journalist. Listen to either a podcast or a radio show when they're discussing rugby, and all it seems to be is this negativity of Irish clubs can't compete,
We see
which is
and the
utter
thing is-
garbage
but that's
because
the
the
thing.
IRFU can compete. They can't go out and compete against Toulon and buy every single
The IRFU
player.
competes
being
in the
They
way
don't
it
have
wants.
to, though.
No,
But
yeah,
only
yeah.
if we're looking, say, for instance, we're talking about Leinster. If Leinster go out into the market and get if they're looking for a second row, and they have a budget, instead of getting four not rubbish players, but average players, put the four salaries together and get one guy and pay him $1 million.
I don't.
So
think,
when is Brodie Retallick signing?
I don't think that Leinster or indeed any of the Irish provinces have ever had a problem attracting top level names if they really wanted them. I mean, they never have. The IRFU can compete when it wants to compete. If the IRFU is convinced of the case, it will do what it needs to do. It's the sorry, just to finish the point. The IRFU had no problem signing Christian Cullen. It had no problem signing Dougie Howlett. It had no problem signing Rocky Alsom. It had no problem signing probably the most high profile player of the lot of them, although it didn't work out, in CJ van der Linde. He was the two-sided prop on a World Cup winning team. I mean, that's
And there was even footage of him scoring a try from 50 metres. Like, what more do you
no
want?
problems getting Ruan Pienaar. He's turned Ruan Pienaar into an Irishman, basically. It had no problems getting Brad Thorne. If the case is there and the need is there, and it just fits in with the IRFU strategy, then they will go and get whoever they need to get.
And to add to that, the IRFU, maybe their eyes have been opened now. Maybe when they've seen these results with the European, that the provinces have had in Europe, that they might say, geez, actually, we do need a higher grade of player than the average.
I agree with you. The problem is, though, that these things are planned. The IRFU is a reasonably big organisation that you can't turn it like you can turn a sports car. It's a bit more of a battleship. You can't, things have to be planned a year in advance. You can't just go and, it's Wednesday. I think we need a second row. Right, let's go. There has to be approaches, and there has to be, first of all, before there's even an approach, the IRFU and Leinster Rugby have to agree that what they want to do. Then they have to make approaches, and they have to do that way before any rugby ball is going to be kicked in the season they're signing for. So, it's going to take a while it took a while to get into this situation. It'll take a while to get back out of it in terms of foreign signings.
Well, I just think
but I agree that
the golden
if we
egg
need
is
them,
there. They've seen the golden egg. They're not going to kill it.
And you see, the thing is, you like you were saying about the negativity. I mean, the negativity isn't actually. No, I agree with you. I mean, media, maybe sometimes ourselves, and maybe we're responsible, but that's not the experience on the ground. If you like, you go to matches and there's a good vibe at Leinster games. Okay, it was disappointing at European match, but there was a good vibe. There's been a good vibe at the Pro 12 games. People have been positive.
there was even a good vibe in the Lansdowne Road when we
in the event,
played
there was.
to that.
Yeah, that was a good atmosphere. Yeah, people are excited about the likes of Ringrose. People are excited about in Munster. They're excited about Scannell. They're excited about Blaenall. They're excited about. I'm sure they have another young player. No, Jackie Donoghue. Connacht, obviously, it's going well there. Ulster have been producing young. I mean, there's huge positives. You could pick a team probably of really good players under the age of 25, an Irish team that you'd say would give anyone a good leather. It might win. They'd give them a good rattle. So I mean, the future isn't as bleak as people as maybe.
I don't think so.
Maybe that's why Jamie Heaslip hates the print media.
Thanks very much for watching. Cheers.